You got to do one deal to make $1 million in commercial real estate. So how do you do that? We're going to talk about becoming the general partner. And what does that mean, right? The difference between the limited partner and the general partner. Limited partner is a passive investor. What does that mean? That means they have no active management responsibilities. It's like just buying stock. GP is responsible for the deal, right? Putting the deal together and managing the property manager and the project overall. The LP just gets passive income, right? The GP gets both passive income and active income, right? They get all those big fees. The LP gets a quarterly report on the status, right? The GP creates the quarterly report about the status. The LP is always looking for the next sponsor with a deal to invest in when this deal's done. And the GP is always looking for another property to invest in. But of course, the really big difference is the GP makes the really, really big bucks. You know, by big bucks, like 10 times as much money. So when you look at like GP versus LP, right, the LP puts $50,000 in the deal and they get some cash flow and they get some profit. So at the end, they get their money back and maybe 50,000 profit. So they double their money. That's great. Well, the GP maybe also can be an LP, but they get acquisition fees, they get cash flow, asset management fees, profit share, at the end, etc. That's the override at the end. You add up what the GP makes on the same deal, they make $1 million on the deal. You know, and that's why we keep saying one deal makes you a millionaire in commercial real estate. I've been doing residential real estate for a lot of years. You got to flip a lot of houses to make $1 million in residential real estate. You got to do one deal to make $1 million in commercial real estate, which is obviously why the GP makes the big bucks and probably why you're all sitting here and interested in this thing called commercial real estate. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, we've spent a lot of time, and we're just halfway through, right, talking about how to do this. You know, yesterday I broke it down into the 15 steps, and then we've had different speakers come in and dive deep into some of the different 15 steps. But you know, these steps can also create barriers to entry. Kind of like you saw Noah at the end of that video. There's a lot. There's just a lot, right? Like raising money, this is hard for a rookie. If you don't have an established network, if you've never raised money before, when you get a good deal, how long is that deal going to wait for you? Like not long, right? You got to do the deal quickly. So a lot of people lose their first deal because they're not able to raise money quickly if they've never done that before. We talked about the brokers, getting the brokers to even pay attention or call you back and show you the pocket listings. That can be a challenge. Not everybody wants to be an asset manager. Somebody on the team has to be an asset manager. Underwriting is maybe the most complicated thing. And I got to tell you, some people, you couldn't pay them to be underwriters. Other people want to be underwriters, right? The team has to have an underwriter. It's a critical part of the function, but it's not for everybody. And I get that. You know, getting a loan, somebody on the team has to have the balance sheet to qualify for the multi-million-dollar loan, right? Either that's you or somebody you bring in, but the team has to have that. Pitching a deal is another one of those funny things. Sometimes we do these big events with like a couple thousand people, and here's something you probably don't know. You know, when you have one of these like 2,000 person events, there are people that will pay up to $15,000 just to be able to stand in front of a room and give a 5-minute presentation. That's like what it goes for, right? And there's so many people that'll literally pay $15,000 to speak to an audience for 5 minutes, right? Now there's other people, a lot of people, where you could not pay them $15,000 to stand in front of 2,000 people, right? And give a presentation, even for 5 minutes. But somebody at the end of the day has to be giving the presentation. It doesn't have to be you, but it has to be somebody on the team. Tools can be very expensive. We talked about that for commercial. That can be a barrier to entry. Having a power team, that's another thing, just like raising money. If you've never done it before, having the team able to do the due diligence and the time you're going to have can be a big challenge. And obviously mastering all of these skills all at once is nearly impossible. And honestly, that's why very few people ever successfully become commercial real estate investors. So when you put all of these things together, you know, it's very easy to think of the 15 steps as being barriers, right? All these barriers. So the goal, obviously, to become a general partner is to figure out how to overcome all of the barriers to entry, right? The money, access to the deals, the tools, underwriting, the balance sheet, the power team, etc. And that's what you have to do to reach escape velocity. So this is an expression I use, reach escape velocity. I'm a big fan of rocket ships. I'm a big fan of SpaceX. They're building a rocket ship called the Starship. Who knows about the Starship? Okay, we got some Starship followers in the room. It's the biggest rocket that's ever been built and the most powerful rocket that's ever been built. And here's the thing about NASA. NASA built this thing called Artemis, and the Saturn V up until now is the biggest rocket ever made. That's the one that took us to the moon. And when they built the Artemis, so like the Saturn V is, I think, 375 feet big, tall. And when they built the Artemis rocket, they built it like 370 feet tall. And it's like the guys in NASA, they do not understand marketing. If they just added a few more feet, they could have called it the biggest rocket ever made, which counts for something. But the engineers are thinking, no, it only needed to be 370, not 375. So of course, what does Elon Musk do? He understands marketing, right? So he builds his 390 feet tall, so he can say it's the biggest rocket, tallest rocket ever built. But the thing about a rocket ship is to get a rocket ship to escape the Earth's gravity, you have to get it up to 25.5 thousand miles an hour. And the way you get it to go up is with rocket engines. And a rocket engine is a controlled explosion. You're literally trying to control an explosion, okay? And you got 33 rocket engines on a Starship. So you're trying to get the biggest man-made thing ever created to go 25.5 thousand miles an hour using controlled explosions without exploding. Okay, so it's probably the most complicated feat in engineering, right? And so, you know, engineers, I'm an engineer, they understand what it takes, right? Or at least the complexity of what it takes to get something to reach escape velocity. And I think that's a pretty good analogy when it comes to commercial real estate, right? Because you have to overcome a lot, right, to become a commercial real estate investor. Hey, Olivia, how are you today?
I am doing well. Super excited to be here in Dallas today in another workshop, teaching people how to work on the elevator pitch for them to be able to find deals and capital raising because it never gets old.
Yeah, I was awesome. Like going through some of these elevator pitches with people today and little tweaks here and there. And it went from like messy all over the place to like smooth, clear, concise.
And now they're ready to go.
Now they're going to be raising capital.
And Mike is super excited.
And you get to do what? Fire?
Their boss. We're ready to fire your boss. When Mike tried to steal my code, that's what happened.
Translate.
So of course we're here rehearsing, making sure all the W-2s learn all the skills that they need for them to be able to fire their boss before they get fired.
There you go. All right, guys. If you want to hear more, contact us, DM us. We're here.